Hello, I am Dr. Amit Kundu, and today we will be discussing about simple Keynesian model. At first, we have an idea that why it is a simple Keynesian model. It is a simple Keynesian model in the sense that there is only one goods market. There is no role of monetary sector. As it is known to us that in the quantity theory of money, price is flexible and role of money is essential in the quantity theory of money. But in the Keynesian model, there is no role of monetary sector. Price is fixed in the simple Keynesian model. On the contrary, in the quantity theory of money, price is flexible. Equilibrium is restored where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Depending on the aggregate demand, equilibrium is found. Here is an important idea in the Keynesian model is that the static equilibrium requires that firms in aggregate neither expand nor contract the quantity of output which they are eventually producing. In the simple Keynesian model, capital and labor, which are the producer of the real output, are constant. In the simple Keynesian model, there is a 45-degree line, which represents the qualities between the supply of real national output and the desired aggregate demand or the desired aggregate expenditure of the people. Now, in the simple Keynesian model, there are three structural equations. One is y equal to E. Here, y is the real output that is produced, and E is the aggregate desired demand, the desired aggregate demand or desired aggregate expenditure. And this aggregate expenditure, desired aggregate expenditure, is equal to the consumption. C stands for consumption, and I, that is the investment. Here, consumption is the real consumption, and I is the real investment. And I is replaced by I0 because it is autonomous. And here there is another equation, which is C equal to A plus BY. So A here is the autonomous consumption and B is the marginal propensity to consume. So consumption is a function of income. Real consumption is a function of income. These all are the structural equations. Why these are the structural equations? Because the variables, here the variables y and c are the function of endogenous variable as well as the exogenous variable. So now consumption and income, here the endogenous, I have said that. Now if you look equation 4, then we find that y equal to a plus by plus I0. A plus by, C is replaced by A plus by, and I0 is the autonomous investment. So by rearranging, we found that y minus by equal to A plus I0. Now, if we take common y, then we find 1 minus b equal to A plus I0. And ultimately, y equal to A plus I0 by 1 minus b. And here, if you have a closer look, that A, B, I0, here all are the constant. So real income is a function of constant. function of constants. So A plus I0 is an autonomous consumption. It is autonomous investment. So this is the autonomous expenditure. Now the I minus B is the multiplier. So this is the static equilibrium value of income. It is the static equilibrium value of income. And once it is produced, there is no scope to contract or expand the production which is already produced. Now, we substitute the value of static equilibrium income in equation 3 and get C equal to A plus BY and A plus I0 by 1 minus B. So C plus actually autonomous expenditure by multiplier. Equation 5 and equation 6 are the reduced form equation. If you see the previous one, that is equation 5, you can see the equation 5 and equation 6 is the equation 5, and this is the equation 6, and these are the reduced form equation, because here only the independent variables on the right hand side. C is a function of independent variables, and here y is a function of exogenous variables or independent variables. So these equation 5 and 6 are the reduced form. If aggregate demand or autonomous expenditure is increased, the static equilibrium output will increase by multiplier method. If aggregate demand or autonomous is increased, the static equilibrium output is will increase by multiplier method. Here you can find the Keynesian multiplier. This is a Keynesian multiplier. What is the Keynesian multiplier? If we look at our previous slide, some problems here. Okay. Now, in a Keynesian model, in which prices as well as the money wages are assumed fixed, you should remember that in the Keynesian model, prices and the money wages are assumed fixed, but in the quantity theory of money, both are variable. This is the basic difference between the neoclassical economics and the Keynesian economics. The quantity of national product supplied depends entirely on the level of aggregate demand. So level of aggregate demand is a function to determine the real output, not the price level of the wage rate. Up to the full employment, it should be remembered that this will be happening up to the full employment level of output. Up to the full employment level of output, aggregate demand plays an important role to determine the supply of a real national product. But beyond the employment level, here is the crucial point. Beyond the level of full employment level, if aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supply prices, prices will go up. Prices will go up, and it is known to us that the consistent or persistent increase in prices will bring inflation. And inflation only can be controlled by reducing the aggregate demand. The point from aggregate demand exceeds full employment level, the model gets discontinuity. Here the model gets discontinuity, because after full employment is the point from where the model gets discontinuity, because up to the full employment, price will not increase, only the real output will increase if the aggregate demand increases. But after the full employment, the price will be increasing, therefore the inflation will take place. look at the picture. This is the now look at the picture. This is the diagrammatic representation of the simple Keynesian model. If you have a closer look along the vertical axis, this is along the vertical axis, we measure the aggregate demand, and along the horizontal axis, we measure the national income in real term. Okay. Now this is the 45-degree line, y equal to E. That means it is an identity. You must remember that y equal to E, and this is the desired aggregate demand curve, and which is where E0 equal to C plus I0. Now this is called the Keynesian cross. Why it is cross? Because there is a two line cross at points, suppose E A here. So this line represents the real output and all the equilibrium points between the real output and the desired aggregate demand or expenditures. And this is the desired aggregate demand curve, and here is the cross point. This is the equilibrium point, and this is the equilibrium point, and this is the full employment level, and this is the full employment level, and up to this point, all the resources, labor or capital, are not fully employed. Okay. Now this point, at this point, both the variables are, that is the capital and the labor force, are fully utilized. Now, if you have a look in that, what I am saying is that because prices are assumed fixed in the Keynesian model, there is nothing in the model to ensure that the equilibrium level of output is the same as the maximum amount of output firms would be willing to produce at these prices. So this point, output is producing, and if the aggregate demand, suppose aggregate demand has increased, then the curve will shift up, and E0 equal to C plus I0, from E0 equal to C plus I0 to E equal to C plus I. So new equilibrium will be here at point C. So in the Keynesian model, we have found two equilibrium points. One is A, depending on the aggregate demand, and another point is C, depending on the aggregate demand. Here, desired aggregate demand is low. Here, desired aggregate demand is high. So in the Keynesian model, you can find two equilibrium points. So as it is a static equilibrium model, and here is a crucial point. After the full employment, if desired aggregate demand will be increasing, then real output will not be increased because resources will be totally exhausted. At this point, there will be no resources to produce further. So only the price level will increase, and the model gets the discontinuity here. Understand? Up to the point D, the model gets the discontinuity. So in the neoclassical and Keynesian model, there is a full employment point. You should remember that this point does not mean that all the workers are employed. Some persons, some individuals are there who are seeking their jobs. who are seeking their jobs. So unemployment, full employment does not mean the total unemployment. Full employment does not mean the all persons are employed. And in the simple Keynesian model, we could not find the equilibrium point between A and C. If we like to find out an equilibrium point between A and C, then we should have another model which is called the dynamic model. In the dynamic Keynesian model, we will spray some light on this topic in our next class. And now, in the static model, a variable moves from one position of the equilibrium to another position of the equilibrium, and the variable takes only one value. Values that a variable takes on between two equilibrium positions cannot be forecast by the static model. In our figure, points A and C are 2 points of equilibrium. Values of the variable between the 2 points cannot be forecasted in static model. Okay, and in the dynamic model, it can be found. So this is the simple Keynesian model, and it is simple because the assumptions are very simple. And on this topic, that is all for today. Thank you all the students.